Good afternoon. Being that we took a break last month, we have two reports to go over. I'll try to be brief, being that there are two. Please, however, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask anytime. Going to July, the numbers that we see is as expected. Compared to the previous year where COVID was a factor, we do have an increase. The year-to-date calls in July was 656 calls as opposed to 510 the previous year. The calls for the month was 156 calls. There were 2 fire calls, 73 EMS, 20 rescue, 3 hazmat, 3 service, and 55 other. Again, denoted by all the stats here on the report itself. Notable events on July 3rd, crews responded to Sullivan's Island, Station 30, to assist with retrieving individuals who became stuck on a sandbar. We stood by and assisted Sullivan's Island with getting those individuals back to shore safely. On the 4th, myself, Fire Marshal Stafford, and Sparky the fire dog were able to participate in the 4th of July golf cart parade, which was a really good time. It's my first time doing that. It was really nice to see. On July 4th, fire crews responded to a missing child on the beach behind 1120 Ocean Boulevard. It's a 12-year-old child that had been last seen in the water after approximately 45 minutes to an hour. We did launch a jet ski and also began a grid pattern search in the water as well as a land search. The child was found on land and reunited with family. They reported also to an outside fire on Palm Boulevard. That was as a result of fireworks. There were some smoldering areas in the backyard. Those areas were fully extinguished, and it was explained very well that fireworks were not allowed on the island. Later that night, fire crews responded to assist the Isle of Palms Police Department due to an accident on Palm Boulevard. It was a individual who tried to stand up on a golf cart, fell off, and sustained substantial injuries to the head and face as well as other areas. Firefighter Puck Harbor, who I would note specifically while off duty, was asked to come help. He was nearby and while off duty responded. He did perform life-saving care to the patient and then assisted Charles County EMS. And that incident will come up later in next month's report. On the 5th, Engineer Schwartz, Firefighter Sesganop, and Firefighter Helm assisted an individual with disabilities onto and off the beach at 21st. I like to mention those. It's a service that I'm so proud that we provide. Of course, we want to help with the community as much as possible and our visitors. On the 6th, fire crews responded to the area breach inlet for swimmers in distress. Fire department personnel assisted 2 individuals out of the water. They provided with medical care to both, as well as assistive packaging to go off with Charles County EMS. On the 17th, we responded to breach inlet for a watercraft in distress. They did find a catamaran had capsized. We again pulled the individual from the boat, brought him back into shore safely. On the 20th, Battalion Chief Eagle, Engineers Gray, Schwartz, and firefighters Russo and Sorger assisted in a show and tell for the City of Isle of Palms Recreation Summer Children's Camp. Participants got to tour the fire truck, spend time with the firefighters, and ask questions. It's good. Later that day, fire crews responded to the Isle of Palms Connector for a motor vehicle accident. Once on scene, personnel found a golf cart which had rolled over. When they had arrived, it had already been placed back upright. All individuals were said to be okay and refused any kind of medical service. So as always, going on from there, it's just analytics. If there's not any questions, I'll move on to August.
Just one quick question. Just looking at the analytics, it wouldn't appear that in terms of response time or other normalized issues that there's anything different this year other than we have an increase, as expected due to an increase in tourism. Is that accurate? The connector really hasn't had a huge impact.
No, it has not been what I would consider an exceptional or a remarkable summer as opposed to some of the others that we've had. It's busy, that's expected. It's a busy time of year, but nothing remarkable.
Just one other quick question on the golf cart incidents, which we all get to witness, people irresponsibly driving golf carts. Were they licensed drivers or were they underage?
I, sir, was not on the scene. That would be probably a law enforcement question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I would note before I move on, though, there is a great letter at the back of this report that came from a visitor who.
And a picture.
In a picture, really exciting. They visited multiple days. and it wasn't listed in a way where I could adhere names to it. I apologize for that. I would love to recognize individuals who, I know Captain Hall was out front a lot of this. But anyways, they were very touched by their visits, and we just want to provide that letter and recognize those firefighters, personnel for doing a great job.
Before you leave that point, you know, for the public, if anyone's paying attention to this, it is nice to bring the children by the fire department. I've done it with my grandkids in the past. They do have little plastic hats, and it's a very welcoming and good community service in both directions. Thank you.
And with that being said, I'm sorry to note that now, right now, due to rises in COVID numbers,
Yes.
We're out of
our
half.
station tours are ceased at this time, and we'll open that back up as soon as we feel it's safe for the personnel in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So August 2021, a total of 114 calls. That's up 12% from the previous year. Year to date, it's now at 770 with a 26% as opposed to the prior year. Again, totally expected considering that the prior year COVID had a big impact. 2 fire-related calls, 54 EMS, 4 rescue, 1 hazmat, 2 service calls, and 51 that we classify as other. Any notable events? August 5th, Fire Marshal Stafford conducted a hurricane and fire safety public event along with the police department. When I say conducted, I would like to note that the police department organized and put it together. We participated. But anyways, they were at the Wild Dunes Property Owners Beach House. I believe he stated approximately 10 participants. So again, getting out into the community and offering any kind of safety is great. August 17th, fire crews responded to a report of a structure fire on Pelican Reach. Upon arrival, firefighters were met by the homeowners who stated that they saw flames coming from a bathroom vent. One of the residents of the home had used an extinguisher to try to put the fire out. When our personnel got inside, there was no fire to be found. They did secure power to that vent, checked for any kind of fire extension, made sure there was no hazards. Everything was okay. They were advised to get it fixed before restoring power. On the 19th, back to that call on July 4th, City Administrator Fregoso, Police Chief Cornett, and myself attended the August 2021 Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce luncheon. Firefighter Puck Harbor was recognized for his actions during that traumatic injury call, which occurred on July 4th. It was a very nice presentation, which included a nice trophy and a cake, which looked really good. I didn't get any of that, but August 28th, fire crews responded to a motor vehicle accident on the Isle of Palms connector. The accident consisted of 2 vehicles. The damage from the rear vehicle, which would be front end damage, required the battery to be disconnected and for leaking fluids to be cleaned up. The passenger in the front vehicle was treated for injuries, and we assisted with packaging for Charles County EMS to transport. On the 30th, just a couple days ago, fire crews responded to a motor vehicle accident on Waterway Boulevard and 32nd Avenue. A pickup truck in the early morning clipped a palm tree, split it in half, and then came to rest against a bush very close to a house. And I don't believe it ever touched the house. Is that correct? Yeah. The individual had minor to no injuries to speak of and ended up refusing care. And again, beyond that, goes back to the analytics. And once again, another letter in the back that I would say C-shift. Assisted a lady after going through a medical procedure. They assisted with getting her in and out of her home. And again, a very touching letter of appreciation. And we definitely wanted to include that and recognize those individuals for a job well done. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain. If not,
Thank you.
thank you.
Jimmy or Philip?
No.
Thank you. Chief Cornett?
Good afternoon. So I will start with August and I'll just highlight some of the report. I'm sorry, I'll start with July. I believe you probably should have the July packet. You may not have the August. It just got mailed out shortly before this meeting. We had 1,363 calls for service in July. And significantly to point out, we had more arrests in July than we have in previous months, to include last year's months. We issued 1,486 parking tickets, which is higher than July of last year. And 22 coyote sightings. And I know we briefly talked about coyotes before this. The administrator and I were speaking yesterday and are working on a plan to address a very specific area where coyotes there's been an increase in coyote sightings in that area. It'll take a partnership between the city and the residents in that area. I think we'll be happy to see where that goes, but it should end in good results. But it's something we're working on and running through legal to make sure we dot all of our i's and cross all of our t's so that we can catch the coyotes and resolve that issue over there.
Chief, just briefly on that subject, since there is and has been a lot of interest, that commentary really is we don't have the right to go on private property as a city at this point and trap. So a lot of these sightings have been on private property. We had some concerns as to whether or not reports were as often as we had a few years ago. A few years ago, it was very topical and people were very engaged in reporting. I did note that July is up significantly in terms of reported sightings, and that might be because the beach walkers and others are beginning to make these calls. But I'd say let's be patient, but I do have full confidence that we're on this particular subject at this time, because our trapping efforts of a few years ago were we caught raccoons and possums and other things and very few coyotes. But
2 coyotes. In the
Yeah.
past, the
Yeah.
trapping on the public areas led to the capture of 2 coyotes.
yeah,
We've been more successful working with residents and helping them to get trappers on their private property. So far this year, that has resulted in 7 coyotes.
yeah,
But with our new plan that we're working on, I think it'll be a collaboration effort for that very specific area because it is heavily populated. It is a beach access that a lot of people use to get to the beach. And it is concerning that there are some coyotes that may be a little less skittish of people than they used to be.
Yeah.
So it makes it more of an issue that we want to have a better collaboration in this very specific area right now to address that. And that's something that I hope to say by the next time we meet, we will have caught all of those and cleared those out. But it will be a partnership between the police department, the city, and the residents that live in that area.
very good.
Moving on with July, I'll just move straight over to the graphs. And the first graph about the vacancies, that for some reason, when I did that yesterday, it looks the same as today's because it's for today, except for the fact that I did receive 1 additional 2-week notice today, which will put the police department 6 positions short with certified police officers. We do have 2 hired that are going through the pre-academy right now that will fill 2 of those spots. Other than that, we will be working to fill the other ones with applicants that we currently have. BSOs, you do see a significant increase in the vacancies there. It's because we hired a lot of Citadel cadets over the summer and Citadel started back, so they had to return back. But we will be utilizing BSOs that we currently have and our 2 officers that are in the pre-academy, as well as our code enforcement and animal control officer to help with issues this coming weekend. So we'll still be staffed. Underneath that, you see the drug and gun and DUI charge trends. We did discover after doing this report that there was a reporting issue with our new RMS. So in August, you'll see numbers are going to be a little bit different, and we'll be going back and touching those up for the next report too, so that you can see what's accurate. But it is notable that 8 DUIs in July, and there were more in August. So the DUIs continue to be a concern for us. When you look at parking citations, you can see what they were all written for. And July was a busy month for parking tickets, which makes sense. It's one of our busiest months that we typically see anyways. Animal control calls for service. When you look at that one, you've got first quarter, second quarter, and then July, 63 calls for service for the animal control officer in July. You can see the heat map after that, and then the crime class type at the end for July. The 3 most classified crime types in there are drugs, narcotics violations are number 1, traffic incidents number 2, and DUI is number 3. Then we moved to August. Oh, let me touch on some things in July real quick. I did forget these. I do want to point out Sergeant Thompson, our detective supervisor, was patrolling for a stolen car in North Charleston on July 21st, and he just happened to find it where he thought he would find it and recovered it right there and called North Charleston to come help us, which was significant. And also we had the Operation Southern Shield took place in July, and that is an operation targeting traffic violators, and it's throughout the Southeast. And we participated in that between the 19th and 24th of July. And also the beach run. I'm happy to say that we had myself, Corporal Hardy, Detective Postel, and Officer Tuminelli, 4 people from the police department participated in that 5K. In August, we did have.
How'd you do?
I'm alive.
Don't answer that.
This is not built for speed.
Chief.
In August, we had two community meetings that Deputy Chief Hathaway talked about that were held out in Wild Dunes to talk about hurricane preparedness. We were there along with Travis from the fire department. We also participated in Sober or Slammer campaign. It began in August and it will end in September. It's common this time of year. We also had Officer Ambus completed the law enforcement boat program, which is a certified boat crew member, and it was paid for by Charleston County Sheriff's Department, so it's no cost to the city. And we'll talk more about that coming up. Calls for service for the month were 1,013. We had 55 arrests and 248 parking tickets. I know that seems low compared to the last one. We typically see a decline in parking tickets in August. People are going back to school, they're going back home, there are not as many visitors here. So we do see it, and that's consistent with last year. And again, 12 coyote sightings for August. When you look on our maps, you see the vacancies are the exact same, but then when you look down at drugs, guns, and DUI charges, we had 10 DUIs, 3 weapon violations, including for guns, 7 marijuana charges, 3 controlled substance, which would be anything that is not marijuana, that is a controlled narcotics, and no distribution level charges for the month of August. You can see the parking citations laid out. It does change in August when you look at it. I broke it down January and February preseason, and then you have the first part of the season where people are still in school, March and May, and then you have June, July, and August. Calls for service for animal control for the month of August. He had 75 calls for service, and those, we've had a significant increase in calls pertaining to raccoons that are acting strange. And we believe that there might be some concern with those. So we have had to euthanize several of them because of the way they were acting and the signs that they were showing. And we are working with DHEC to see if we can get some tested so that we can confirm if we have an issue there or not. But it is significant number or increase in the number of raccoon calls that we've had. Then you can see the heat map. Looks pretty similar to the first month. And then you can see the crime class types, and the top 3 again are traffic incidents, then it's drug narcotics, and then DUIs for the month of August. Are there any questions for me?
No, Jimmy?
What's your thoughts on the configuration of the connector since we've had it for several months? The reason I ask is I was coming out.
Councilmember. If you don't
Jimmy,
mind.
the microphone, Desiree's.
Thank you.
The reason I asked, I was coming home, I'm sure it's just rare, but somebody was passing on the right on the connector going towards Mount Pleasant. And if there'd been any pedestrians or bicyclists at all, they wouldn't have any choice except to jump over it.
Right.
Have y'all experienced any of that?
I've seen it myself once,
Yeah.
and I invited that person to come spend a day with me here afterwards. We've had limited number of those incidents where we have seen that, but each time we see it, we do issue a citation, and it is a 4-point ticket when they unlawfully pass on the right or on the left. So it's not been as high as I thought it would have been. I actually thought we'd see more of that than we do.
Yeah.
So that's a little promising, but the fact that we have any of it is still a concern. Other than that, with the configuration on the connector, we've really not seen much of an impact one way or the other. Collisions have not increased. We've only had one incident where we had to bring an ambulance up the opposite lane, but that was just due to the collision and the way it was set up. It was actually easier for us since that lane was closed to just bring the ambulance up that lane anyways.
Yeah, I rarely leave the island, so I was a little shocked when I saw it. I appreciate you answering my question. I was wondering if it was a problem.
It's pretty shocking, but I will say I've seen it in other places too. Again, the fact that it's a bicycle lane and a pedestrian lane it's always a concern, and it's a safety issue when somebody does pass on the right. So please, if anybody sees it, we encourage them to call us so that we can try to address it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Chief.
No questions here. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Moving into old business, and our favorite subject, discussion and consideration of dog leash rules and enforcement. And Desiree, I believe the last time we went through this, we were still waiting on a animal control officer to be hired that had experience and would advise us of some appropriate both penalties and protocols. Do we have any updates on that?
Before Chief Barnett's going to provide some updates on that and some thoughts, but I wanted to clarify one thing particularly. From the last meeting in July, you all recall that the committee made a recommendation to establish a minimum fine for dog at large violations. So we're limited by state law to issue citations no more than $500. The dog at large citation, it includes a court assessment of 107.5%. So that means that a $500 citation ends up being $1,087 with 50 cents for people. And that would be, if you set that as a minimum, then that is basically you're setting up the citation fine at $500. So I don't think we discussed that at length last time, and I just wanted to make you all aware that setting it at 500, you're essentially making that citation dog at large violations be 1,087 in total once assessments are added.
So can we go back to intent and enforceability? And I think the intent, I think it was Councilmember Ward that had brought it up as well, is to frankly get people's attention that aggressive dogs off leash that wind up attacking people are not welcome on the island, and that we have enough teeth in our ordinances to highly recommend to people, be it $500 or $1,000, that this is not a good idea, because we've had continuous complaints. On a personal level, I'm okay with it. If the chief tells us that we have the ability to enforce, and under what circumstances would we be able to enforce? Because just seeing a large dog run loose doesn't qualify for, we're going to go write them a ticket and they're going to be held accountable for $500 to $1,000. So Chief, do you want to comment on how that?
Certainly. And so our concern with the enforceability of the dog at large is simply that it has to be under voice command. And unfortunately, we don't understand, or we will not know that it's not under voice command until something happens. And when I started looking into this, what I found was that I looked at South Carolina state statutes. I looked at Sullivan's Island, Edisto Beach, Folly Beach, Mount Pleasant, Charleston County, and Dorchester County. They all have the same fine that we do. What they have that we don't is a specific ordinance that addresses vicious dogs, and it outlines what those are. My recommendation to council would be that we look more at a different statute that would define what a vicious dog is, and then that will give us more enforceability with those, so that when that dog has an issue, we have more teeth to go after it in a more well-crafted ordinance specific to that violation.
And Chief, we had a resident send a letter in that had done similar research on that topic and had suggested some language around certain breeds that may be worth letting because your new person's here, right? Animal control person, but we probably haven't given him or her time to.
They
look
are
at this
here.
and
It was actually a beach service officer that got promoted. Unfortunately, we had a lot of experience that applied, but that's all they did. They didn't follow up with the rest of the process. And so they didn't get hired. So we do have somebody new to the position that's not got the experience that we were hoping to have. But there are some, when I did look this up, there were some municipalities that do outline some different types of breeds. There's also some language that recommends not doing that because it's not necessarily the breed of the dog as much as it is how they're raised and how the owner treats them.
Yeah.
So you could find verbiage one way or the other to support or to not support naming a breed in your ordinance.
Because Desiree, you remember that? I think you forwarded it to us actually. So it's at least worth a look at from a starting point.
Yeah, I would just, that we, not to keep pushing this one off, but that we come back with some recommended language at the next Public Safety Committee looking at vicious dogs and make it a little more specific to the intent.
Certainly. And I've printed all those ordinances off from those other municipalities and counties.
Okay.
So we've got something to work with there. Instead of reinventing the wheel, we can be a copycat.
Okay, thank you. Old business item B, discussion of speeding issues on the avenues and consideration of reducing the speed limit on interior streets. And we left that discussion last time, recognizing that the interior streets are 30 miles an hour. And did we need to or wish to take some action to be consistent across the island?
So a couple of updates on this. Councilmember Buchanan actually reached out to Secretary Hall after the public safety meeting and asked what the city could do to consider something similar what we've seen in other communities where it says residential streets are 25 miles or under. The response received from SCDOT was the streets that were being used as an example were locally owned. So the standards for locally owned roads are different from the state standards. They did say that they were going to look and see whether any differences and whether there was anything in the state statute or state standards that could accommodate moving in that direction to lower the speed limit in the interior streets. So that's where it's at. They were going to look at that and see whether it's an option for us to consider while they're still, state roads. I did want to use this opportunity to give you all some numbers from the speed sign, the new stop sign at 41st Avenue. Chief Cornett and his team pulled those numbers today. Obviously, we don't have a full, the sign was installed August 12th, so we haven't had a full 30-day. But the stats for the Wildwood side for the month of August show that vehicles traveling at less than 25 miles an hour, that was an 83% on the Wildwood side. And on the marginal side, 90% of vehicles were 25 miles an hour. If you look at the numbers of less than 30 miles an hour, so 5 miles more than the speed limit, 98% and 96%. So significantly higher, not as, pretty consistent in the past, but higher numbers, at least in the number of August of those that are not speeding.
More than a little anecdotally, since that sign is in my front yard, I will tell you it has an impact. What I didn't anticipate, and I've had a lot of local parents reach out to me and volunteer to come here as well. We don't realize how many people cross the street there, their children going to the marina. And I had one parent tell me, he said, boy, this is wonderful. He said, I don't have to worry anymore. My kid's coming from Forest Trail, that somebody's flying down the road, that they actually do have to stop, and my kids have an opportunity to safely cross the street and continue down to the marina. And I'll probably have them follow up on this. They said, we'd be more than happy to bring our children to a council meeting, let everybody know how much we appreciate the improvements in safety. I never gave that a consideration. I was looking at speeding. But when you think about it, that's the pathway for the majority of the interior neighborhood to get to the marina for children. So my opinion, good result. And thank you, Desiree. and
You're
Chief.
welcome.
Anything else from either of you?
Randy, real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I know back on the speed limit, because I know additional signage is some concern that's been voiced, but, other smaller communities or barrier islands or, have a one sign when you come across the connector in our case, or breach inlet, would say all roads are 25 unless otherwise posted. So I don't think we're going to, wind up with a whole lot more signage around the island if we go down this path. So I think there's a good solution for that if we do. So I hope we keep pushing this one forward.
But the issue is getting permission from SCDOT,
Yeah.
right? It's not a
Correct, for
signage
those
issue.
that are-
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, update discussion of study of the modifications to the IOP connector.
So these conversations are, ongoing. There is a company that has been identified by DOT, a reputable company, a firm, engineering firm based out of Maryland, that has been identified as a potential partner to conduct the traffic study that SCDOT has committed to doing on behalf of the city, working in collaboration with the city. Those, I don't have confirmation whether the company has already been engaged. We were given an opportunity to look into the firm I have had conversations with traffic engineers that live on the island that have been providing some expertise. People who know them, who've worked with them. And the feedback that I have received is that they're a reputable firm. They're not local, which, you know, some people would believe that that's a good thing, that they can come in with a fresh perspective, a fresh pair of eyes to look at some of the issues that we're dealing with. And ultimately, I think the goal is to have collaboration with folks that are creative at solutions. I think at the end of the day, we're all going to be looking at the same data. Is how do we approach the problem in ways that maybe are forward thinking, different, and creative, if you will.
Desiree, if may, just for the public's benefit, go back to the beginning, because people were saying, well, we were committed from Senator Campson and Secretary Hall that we would do a study of the connector. And folks thought, well, we're not doing anything. The data continues to be collected. There has been a challenge when you're hiring people to deal with traffic and traffic issues and highways. Many of them have deep, profitable relationships with SCDOT. So we have had some diligence behind the scenes, both with Secretary Hall and Desiree working to find an acceptable third party, if you will, that we felt could give us an objective view on behalf of the city, so that we're not just taking directives from the South Carolina Department of Transportation. And hence, that's where we are. And it's actually good, positive news that we're moving forward, hopefully with somebody that can help out on this.
Mhm. And as you all know, City Council allocated $15,000 to hire a traffic engineer on our behalf to, you know, speak, somebody who can speak the language, who can come in and again, be our eyes and ears in the whole process and make sure that, you know, assumptions are correct, assumptions that are made during the process, and review any, review the reports, review any other conclusions. And I have received a proposal from Bill Engineering. They're based out of Columbia, again, very reputable company that I'm evaluating, again, a not to exceed amount of $15,000. If that ends up, again, we're still working through creating the scope of again, what does success look like at the end of the study? Make sure the city will definitely be involved in that. And in the event that $15,000 may not be enough, I'll be coming in front of you all for some adjustments to that. But that process is moving along. We've had very productive conversations with both SCDOT and the firm that would act on our behalf. And we should be seeing some progress very soon.
Okay, thank you. Moving along to item D, discussion of the enforcement of golf cart regulations. Chief?
So we continue to work on golf carts. And what we found is it's very complicated to track those because, believe it or not, up until today, there was not a special button that dispatch could put in to let us know that this call was specific to a golf cart. They were just tracking them as traffic stops. And so finding data was not as easy. As of today, though, they are now tracking golf cart stops and bicycle stops. So we'll be able to pull those stats different from what we've been able to. So we're actually be able to come back to you with more accurate numbers. In the past, we've gone on the edge of, we know these are golf carts, so those numbers could have been higher, but we always stay with what we knew were golf carts. So this is a positive. I'll be able to give you better data in the future about how we do that. But we do continue to enforce golf cart rules. I know there was a DUI this past month for a DU on a golf cart. So they're definitely still out there doing it.
I think more than anything on golf carts, I think those of us that live here understand that a lot of it is education. I mean, people believe that your children can drive golf carts. I mean, I see it all the time. They think it's okay to ride down the middle of Palm Boulevard all the time. And so I don't know what our public outreach effort is, but I would encourage the city to continue to advise people that it is a motor vehicle that requires a driver's license.
One thing that we have been doing through the rec center and the rec team is the events that do include some golf cart activity. We're doing the golf cart parade again for Halloween this year, which was very popular and well attended last year. We think it'll be the same. We require people to register, and we use that as an opportunity to verify, ensure that people have the right documentation, and also provide information about golf cart regulations. So we're trying to utilize these events that are very popular in our community to put the word out and make sure people are aware, because usually most of the time they just
That's
don't
right.
know. So. just-
Okay.
And I
thank
did
you.
want to go back and
Yes.
visit the golf cart incident on July 4th.
Yeah.
The golf cart was being operated legally by a local company that people will pick people up and drive them on those golf carts. This was a passenger that was intoxicated, that stood up at the wrong time when they hit a bump, and it was a very tragic accident. But my understanding is Puck Harbor's response and work on that did a significant job in keeping this individual alive, and that's why he was recognized. But the golf cart was operated legally in that incident.
Okay, thank you. Moving to new business and, oh, I'm sorry, Jimmy?
Yeah, I had a question. Golf carts I know are regulated by the state. Do we have any opportunity to expand our laws, or that's all done at the General Assembly?
The state
thing-
statute does give the city for barrier islands. It does open the avenue for barrier islands to change ordinances to allow driving at night and different things like that that would normally not be authorized. But it is written in state statute that the city on a barrier island can alter those or make different ordinances pertaining to those.
The main thing, I have a lot of safety issues with the golf carts we've already discussed. The children see it all the time. It's just a matter of time, I believe, before somebody gets hurt. But another major concern is when I see parents and they're holding small infants in
No kidding.
their lap in a golf cart. It doesn't have it can't maneuver like a car can.
Right.
And it just seems like to me, I would like to entertain the possibility of looking into the children under a certain age must be in a child's seat with facing the rear, strapped in, making sure that they don't fall out of those carts. Because if you go around a corner too fast, a child can easily be thrown. You don't want to be a nanny state or anything. I just think it's a real safety concern. And can we look into that, or is that above our pay
We
grade?
can look into it. I have to look at the state statute. I know it gives us very specific abilities to alter certain things like the driving at night. I'm not sure how far that goes, but we could certainly look into it
Okay,
and see where we go.
Chief, it would seem at a minimum, I agree with everything you said, having grandkids, my kids wouldn't hesitate to not allow a kid in a car without a car seat appropriately strapped in, but we do kind of check our brains at the golf cart and think it's okay, even though these carts are doing 25 miles an hour. The only thing I'd suggest, Jimmy, is a lot of carts, you wouldn't be able to. I mean, I have an LSV with shoulder straps and the whole thing, and you can do that, but you would be probably precluding a lot of children from riding in golf carts. The one question, though, I think we absolutely can and should do something about, parents with their kids in their laps driving these golf carts,
really scary.
maybe not going all the way as you're suggesting, which I don't disagree with, but there's just some common sense rules that we ought to be able to say, when you have an infant in your lap driving a golf cart, not a good idea. And by the way, maybe against the law.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you wouldn't drive a car with
No.
an infant in your lap, right?
No, or a bicycle, hopefully.
Chief, I just appreciate you
Yeah.
looking into that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. New business, I don't think we need to do anything procedurally, but the administrator asked that I bring before public safety an approval for the IOP connector run.
Yes, so this was on my end. I forgot to include it on the agenda for today's meeting. And it is a consideration for approving the consumption of beer and wine at the end of the connector run. This is something that happen, we have an event every year, and they have a vendor that gives folks a cup, a glass of beer after they finish the race. And because we do allow them to finish the race and congregate in city property, we have an ordinance prohibiting the consumption of alcohol in city property. We did this last year. Council approved it by resolution. We don't have the resolution yet, but I would like you all to consider amending the agenda, adding this item to the agenda, then making a recommendation for the resolution to be presented to city council at the end of the month. The event is October 2nd. The final approval would come on September 28th by a council vote. But having this action by the committee would help us in terms of timing and planning purposes to issue the permit that they need to go to the Department of
Revenue.
Revenue. So again, I apologize that this is
Okay.
not included on the agenda. It is not the last time, council, and you all would consider this vote on this. So the public will have an opportunity to weigh in and public comment next time at the next meeting. So procedurally, you all could entertain a motion to amend the agenda, add this consideration to the agenda. And we need that to be approved on a 2/3 vote. And then take action on the motion that you just added.
So moved.
Okay.
I will second it. Do we need to restate that or we? are we
No,
good,
so
Nicole?
Nicole's, are-
Meeting
This is
to-
just a motion to
Yeah.
change the
Just to
agenda
change
to
the
allow
agenda. And then we'll make the motion.
Correct.
correct. And the motion to add it to the agenda requires a 2/3 vote.
All right, so now we're changing the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and I need a motion to add it.
So moved.
I'll second that.
So it's the motion, just for confirmation, you are approving,
Yeah.
moving forward with the event, ending at the municipal parking lot and the consumption of beer and wine just in that location. And this will be presented to city council on the 28th.
Correct.
Okay. We all right? All in favor?
Aye.
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 On a lighter note, Desiree, this is not a mandate, right?
No.
Okay.
You do not have to drink beer.
Okay, the regular agenda for new business. Item A, discussion and consideration of the Marine Unit Agreement with Charleston County Sheriff's Office.
So I'll set the stage a little bit on this and then let Chief Cornett fill you in some of the details. We had discussed this a couple of months ago, when Chief Cornett brought forward to the committee an opportunity for the city to work in collaboration with Charleston County Sheriff's Office and their Marine Unit to provide assistance for water rescue. This is something that some people are surprised that we don't currently do that. Folks, I think, expect that the city would have some type of presence or enforcement activity on the intercoastal when it comes to the no wake zone and boating under the influence. And we don't. We rely on Charleston County. They have provided a vessel, a boat that would be operated by the Isle Palms Police Department. In your packets included the mutual aid agreement that would spells out the policies and expectations and how that will go. There are several questions about insurance, who's going to operate the boat, what kind of training folks are going to have, and I'm going to let Chief Cornett break that down for us so that if y'all have any questions, we can kind of talk this through and see whether y'all feel comfortable moving this forward to City Council for their consideration this month.
Please.
So you'll have two different agreements in front of you. One would be the agreement allowing us to use the vessel that Charleston County has allowed us to use. And the second one will be the agreement for the Metro Marine Unit participation. And they both kind of have to happen for either one to happen. And with it, we have 4 officers now that are certified through boat crew member that were trained through NASBLA, the National Association of Boating, Law Enforcement Boating. And that was all paid for by Charleston County Sheriff's Department. The boat was paid for by Charleston County Sheriff's Department. They will maintain insurance on the boat because it is a grant boat for them. They will still have access to it. That's why it's housed where it is, so that they can pull up and get it if they need it. And only people that are certified through our department would be able to use that. We would be able to use it for rescue missions in and around the area, for the no wake zone on the intercoastal that's been out there. We rely on DNR to do those things, but they're limited on personnel, and so they can't be everywhere. It also gives the benefit for the sheriff's department is it gives a vessel in the water in this area. Right now, when a call comes out on Dewey's Island or Goat Island or in this general area, they're deploying an asset from either Charleston City, from Maybe Mount Pleasant may come if they're in the water. North Charleston may be able to come if they're in the water. We're just closer right
Long
now, and it
ways.
is a safety benefit for all parties involved. We do have a policy that would be written, and when I have my team compare the policy I wrote to the other ones, they said, well, ours is very in-depth, which is good. But most of our policies in the area all mimic each other as far as how they work and when we're able to use them and go through that. Did they have the questions with them?
They do not.
We can, are there questions you have? Because they might be in here. I might be able to answer those.
No, I
Or is there
just,
something you wanted me to hit on specifically?
No, we will share this with all of council. These are questions that I had of the agreement of the department. I think they'll be helpful. Maybe you all have the same. And it spells out everything, how it's gonna work, where expenses are expected to come out of, how much expenses anticipated in terms of maintenance, personnel operating the equipment, how are we gonna cover personnel when they're out on call? So it's just a bit of a more detailed emphasis operationally on how that would work with the department, not necessarily the agreement that spells out how the boat is going to be used and who's responsible for what. It's more of an internal document. So I'll share that with all of you, and you can spend the next few weeks evaluating it. And if you all have any questions, please
no,
let us
just
know.
one comment. The change meeting to meeting, we were at one point considering a donated boat to the city of Isle of Palms that didn't work out. It wasn't an appropriate type of watercraft. It was not a
It's gonna
great,
be too
great
expensive
maintenance
to bring it
deal,
into
and-
compliance.
so the difference here is this is a county supplied boat with us supplying personnel in a cooperative arrangement, much like we would do with a land-based operation, right?
That's correct. And
Correct.
they've upfitted this boat. They actually took and put a newer motor on it already.
Yeah.
They've updated all of the equipment on board. They have another motor sitting at their location in case this one goes down, they can put it on. All we are responsible for would be fuel and any maintenance that needs to be done. And boats don't require the same preventative maintenance as often as a vehicle does. This one's already had preventative maintenance done this year. We're estimating we'll probably have to do it beginning of the year next year, just before the summer kicks in.
Very good. So do we need to take action, Jimmy?
No, it's just a quick comment. As y'all know, I spent 4 years in the Coast Guard doing search and rescue. And timing is everything.
Yep.
And when you have assets in place like this, this is very good. And it can probably end up saving lives, because just minutes can make the difference between life and death. So I totally agree with this. And you brokered a hard deal there,
He did.
Chief. You did good.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, do they pick up the insurance, or is that us?
They're going to cover it because they obtained the boat through a grant. So
Okay,
they're required to maintain their insurance on it.
all right, thank you.
Gets
So-
better and better.
And we do need a motion to approve.
We
don't
do. If you all want to entertain a motion to bring this before city council, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the Marine Unit Agreement with Charleston County Sheriff's Office.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
And I do want to just echo, congratulations to Chief Cornett. I mean, continuing
Yes.
to develop the relationships with our stakeholders and partners. It's all we're about. We don't operate in a vacuum, and I just want to commend him and his team working through this, all the details. I had a ton of questions, and all questions were responded very timely, and I got more information that I wanted, or that I needed. So I'm just very proud of them.
I want to commend him as well. This has been a long time discussion item, and it's about time as an island that we did this. So that's great.
Thank you.
Item B, consideration of the purchase of 2 patrol SUVs for the police department, fiscal year 22 budget, police department capital projects, and state aid tax of $123,000. And this is 2 budgeted items. correct?
Correct. We have 3 replacements, SUVs replacement in this fiscal year. That's why the number in the budget is 123,000. However, the police department, they're evaluating replacing one of the 3 rather than with an SUV with another pickup truck. So that's not here yet. That's a 3rd one that will come up later. That one it's not currently on state contract, but will be the next month. So we're waiting for that to happen. These purchases are on state contract. The packet includes some detail in terms of the cost it is within budget and we're recommending a motion to approve.
It's, Chief, this is, our budget's 123,000, but this purchase will be 61,000, give or take.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Two
Correct.
SUVs.
Within
Correct.
budget.
We typically budget about 41 to 42,000 per vehicle.
All
That
in.
includes the purchase of the vehicle,
Yeah.
upfitting it with all the equipment and the markings.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item C, consideration of transition from 40 caliber pistols to 9mm caliber pistols. Again, this is in the budget and $6,000 after trade-in. And this was something we discussed earlier. You might comment on it, but smaller caliber ammo is still highly effective and what a lot of police departments are changing to, as I understand.
After the FBI did their study a few years ago, they concluded that the 9mm rounds were better used in a law enforcement capacity. Years ago, they switched because of the knockdown power behind a 40 or a 45. But over the years, 9mm proved to be more accurate because they have less kick. And when you have to use, when the hope is we never have to use it, but when you do, it needs to be really accurate. And so we want to move to that mostly because our partners and our neighboring agencies are all transitioning to 9mm. It's important that we all have the same equipment so that if something happens and we're all at a significant event together, we can share resources so that we can address the issue that we're dealing with. And after the trade-in, it will be a little less than $6,000 for us to get those. So it's initially going to be 14,000 and some change, but then we will trade in the 40 calibers that we currently have and they will reimburse us for that. We will actually get one invoice after everything's traded in, which will be under the $6,000.
And lower cost ammo.
Yeah.
Well, and we've already started ordering ammo because that's the hardest part right now, is getting the ammunition. And that doesn't matter what caliber you're in. It's
Mhm.
just, it could be a 22 and it's hard to
Yeah.
find ammunition at this point.
Chief, there's like 3 quotes in the packet. Can you just walk through?
That would be another one of my giving more information than
Got it.
required.
Fair
Um,
enough.
So they are evaluating the whole, so originally, the idea was that they would reuse the holsters that they have. That's
Got it.
still, I don't think that we've confirmed that yet. So if they don't need the holsters, then they're
'Cause
gonna
that-
use.
That's one quote.
That's one quote.
Gotcha.
And then you have 2 quotes for the holsters, one with light, one without light. So I think
Got
that it was just the options.
Got it.
And, they'll tell me who needs a light and who doesn't. So, but
We have-
that's not part of what you all would be approving. That's something that I would approve if necessary. It would be under the threshold that I am able to approve if it's
So we're
necessary.
just doing this first bid for 16,200.
That's correct. That was
Correct.
16,000. Yes,
Okay.
sir. And then the bottom one, I believe you'll see
Was
Glock
training.
T-17 training pistols. Those were the simunition guns that we
Exactly.
talked about. We will move forward with purchasing those. They were already a line item on the budget, and that
Mhm.
would be something Mrs. Fregoso could approve.
Those were the ones we were borrowing
Your mom.
for the training exercises prior to this.
Mhm. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. And item D, update on the hiring
No,
process.
we need a- we
Oh,
need a
I'm
motion.
sorry.
Yes.
You already have a motion.
No, you already did that.
Not
We
on
don't have a
this
motion on this.
We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item D, update on the hiring process for the fire chief.
Okay, I'll give you all an update. So we have evaluated and interviewed a couple candidates that are willing and able to serve the interim fire chief position. We're hoping that we get that in place in the next several weeks. In the meantime, Chief Cornett will continue to be the Director of Public Safety, overseeing the fire department administratively, providing administrative oversight. I have also I have received 3 proposals so far from executive recruitment firms. I'm waiting for one that I'm expecting in the next day or 2 to help us recruit the best qualified candidate for the position of fire chief to lead our fire department. I'll continue to update you all on those developments and bring forward a candidate for the interim position. We're thinking about a 3 to 4 month process, depending on how long the process to recruit a permanent chief will be. The candidate for the interim chief position will not be a candidate for the permanent role. I have been in discussions and interviewing folks that have been recently retired. Folks that an impressive background, people that have come in and have experience in transitional situations, just like the one we're in. So I'm very excited to see that play out and bring that recommendation to city council for approval.
Okay. Questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Next item, miscellaneous business. We have no additional miscellaneous business. Next meeting date, 3 p.m. Thursday, October 7th. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 3:57. Thank you.